thanks everyone for very inspiring presentations in the earlier sessions and during the earlier days. We have now come to session 4 of this stakeholder plenary meeting, the 10th stakeholder plenary meeting. So we should have celebrated the 10th, but sorry, it's hard to bring cake to everyone in this kind of world. But here in this panel discussion, we have a distinguished list of speakers, and we will talk about the fast way forward and also how to overcome implementation barriers. And the speakers that we will have here, that will first give, let's say, the opportunity to voice their, let's say, statements in a 5-minute, and then we will have a discussion, and we will also try to make this session, the last session, as let's say interactive as possible. So we will try to get questions from the audience in here as well. But first we have Maria Georgiadou from DG RDT. Those of you that were listening the first day also heard Maria's speech on from the European Commission side. So you will hear about Maria. And then we also have from DG ENER, we have Eric Fee that will give his views also on this very interesting subject. Then we have Timo Ritonummi from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment of Finland. And Timo is also the chair of the set plan implementation working group number 8, so dealing with bioenergy. So you will hear from Timo what about is happening in the set plan and so on, which I also happen to be quite involved in myself, of course. And then at last we have also Küchen from Wirtschaftsverband Fuels und Energie. It was correct. My German is not the best. It was a long time ago. So giving his views also from the energy sector. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And now I will give the word to Maria. So ladies first, and to give your views. And I know that you have prepared a couple of slides. So please, Maria, go ahead and share your slides, or if please can share for you.
Let me find the slides.
Yes, you've got the right to share your screen, Maria, if you find it. If not, I also have it saved on my computer. So
yeah, can you please share it? So it would be okay. So thank you very much, Patrik, for this introduction. My messages here are a few but key regarding the way forward. And first of all, I would like to say that, next slide please, I would like to say my first message is that it is the top EU policy priority, the European Green Deal and the European climate and energy policies that set the boundaries for the way forward in renewable fuels, biofuels, bioenergy. And here the climate law was announced, which was announced on 30th of June 2021, sets an EU-wide at least 55% greenhouse gas emissions net reduction in 2030 from the 1990 levels, and climate neutrality in 2050. And all other strategies like the energy system integration, hydrogen, biodiversity, smart mobility support this. Next. Now, how this is going to be obtained, it is how it is going to be delivered, how we are going to deliver in the Fit to 55, the set of legislative proposals that revise legislation in climate, energy, transport, and taxation, and most of them, if not all, affect the implementation for renewable fuels, biofuels, and bioenergy. Next slide, please. Then how do we do the way forward? How do we finance it? There is funding available both for research and innovation and for risk financing. For research and innovation, there is the Horizon Europe with almost 100 billion. In particular, the Innovate Europe, the European Innovation Council, that has 13.6 billion for the next 7 years. And it actually puts 70% of this budget on small and medium-sized enterprises. But also the budget that is included in Cluster 5, Climate, Energy and Mobility, which is quite big, 15.1 billion. The partnerships, the EU partnerships that are relevant, the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, the Waterborne and the Clean Aviation with 9 billion budget, and the EU missions that are related, like the cities, the oceans, the climate, but also the soil. And here we have earmarked another 1.5 billion. Now, there is also the InvestEU for Research and Innovation that will leverage quite a number of billions for investments in research and innovation. And if we move to risk financing, we have the Innovation Fund with an increased budget after the ETS revision of 47 billion. And for bigger investments, one can find financing for commercial plans under the Next Generation EU and in general, the multi-annual financing framework with almost 1.8 trillion budget for 2021-2027. Next slide, please. And I will finally say that we do support research and innovation under Horizon Europe in the Cluster 5 Climate, Energy and Mobility and the Destination Sustainable, Secure and Competitive Energy Supply for the focus area of renewable energy and renewable fuels. We have now already announced topics for the FOSFER program 21-22 between June 2021 and September 2022. And all in all, we really support development and improvement of technologies for advanced biofuels and synthetic renewable fuels, how to couple the electricity, the renewable electricity with these fuels, and how to couple renewable energies in general and renewable hydrogen with the production of this type of fuels in order to have finally zero and negative emission biofuel production and modern bioenergies. Also, we support intermediate bioenergy and renewable energy carriers in all their forms, gaseous, liquid, and solid, because these are the linking elements for all the energy system and energy consuming sectors, both for energy use and for energy storage. With this and the supplementary risk financing, I think the European Commission supports the way forward in bioenergy, biofuels, and renewable fuels. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Maria. Very comprehensive and interesting. So a lot of food for thought. I will now leave over to Eric Fee from DG ENER and I know you have also prepared one slide. So please, Eric.
Yes, thank you. Should I share it, or do you have?
I have sent.
So I can share it again.
Well, so
Okay, great, thanks. It's probably
Okay.
easiest. So in the meantime, well, I just want to say it's well, I'm a bit jealous of Maria because she gets to talk about the money that we're spending on biofuels and bioenergy, and I think when we're talking about speeding up and moving forward, I think not to be perceived as a speed bump here, but there are some other aspects that we that Maria has mentioned in the European Green Deal, as well as the Fit for 55 package, that have also been influencing our policy on bioenergy. And that is why, and I know this group has spoken quite a bit or discusses quite a bit biofuels, but to maybe take a step into the forest on the forest biomass, solid biomass, more relevant for bioenergy. I thought I would give a few points on where are we coming from with the RED II revision regarding the sustainability criteria, as we see that with the RED II revision, that one of the main elements was first increasing ambition, and knowing that we have about 60% of our renewable energy is coming from biomass. This would probably relate to also increased use of biomass for energy. And also there have been some impact assessment, as well as in studies from GRC on biomass from the forest, some evidence of potential risks when increasing ambition. So to ensure that we're increasing ambition without doing significant harm, it was determined necessary to also strengthen the sustainability criteria, which is also in line then with things like the LULUCF regulation, biodiversity strategy, forest strategy, all of these new proposals and revisions that have been being brought forward. So to start, it was particularly the areas that were until now under more for agricultural biomass, saying basically that production from these kinds of areas that had once been primary forest or highly biodiverse forests and peatlands and wetlands that have been degraded or reconverted to make biomass, that these are also then off limits or that for forest biomass. Now, in this case, it would be things like, for example, wetlands. If there's no drainage, and it can be shown that this is not detracting from these lands, then and from the biodiversity protection in these areas, then there are exceptions to this. One other element is the minimizing of large clear cuts. Of course, this is something that depends on the member state. How do we define large clear cuts, and what does this mean? I think member states all have different ways of managing the issue of clear cuts in different sizes and limits, depending on the needs and the conditions in those member states. I think for outside of the EU, this might need some more clarification. And then basically the sustainability criteria have also been expanded to installations. Until now, they've been the 20 megawatts or larger. But here the proposal is to also consider 5 megawatt and larger installations. This is because then we would be moving from roughly 80% of the biomass to having verifying sustainability for above 90%. And of course, this is also then means moving to existing installations as well. Now, for the smaller installations, 5 megawatt, there would be also member states should provide more. I guess we would less or make it more simpler verification process to ensure this, to reduce the administrative burden for smaller installations. And then the one big change is the introduction of the cascading principle. And basically, one issue is that with the increasing demand for biomass, there's been some evidence of shifting from not just from thinning, where you have a lot more biomass that's used for that would be more usable for energy use, but that there may be a shift towards more industrial roundwood being used also for energy purposes, and to avoid this kind of a distortion in the raw material market, to implement the cascading principle. How this is done needs to be seen. There would be a delegated act to further define this, and also building on experience that we have also in the different member states, as well as the guidance that we've had, for example, the bioeconomy. And again, as I mentioned, this is very much linked to LULUCF regulation, where there is increase. The targets are for a larger carbon removals from the forest, and also that there would be a sort of effort sharing amongst member states for these carbon removals from the forest. So we see that there's sort of a need for a balance between these different goals. And one other element that's really important is the ETS, because the zero rating for the ETS installations is only if the biomass meets the RED II, or is RED II compliant. And maybe one last thing, this is very new because it came out yesterday, the Commission proposal for the deforestation regulation. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to see this.
Yes.
Basically, this is, or maybe I'm repeating something that someone else
No.
has also. Okay, good.
I read it yesterday myself, so please.
Okay, a few words on that. Basically, this proposal is covering different commodities. It's a set of commodities being, I don't know if I have all of them in my mind, but soya, palm oil, cocoa, and wood, of course. And I think there may be one or two more. But wood being particularly of relevance here, but also I guess palm oil and soya for energy purposes. So it basically, the regulation prohibits the entry into the EU market of any commodities that have that are not deforestation or degradation free. And basically the countries there would be a benchmarking that countries are low risk, medium risk, or high risk. If it is a low risk country, which would be most likely applicable to the EU member states, then what is needed is the operator, which is the one producing the biomass, would need to provide a certificate saying geolocation, where does this biomass come from, and a bit more information, but not much, and then this would suffice for entering the EU market from a low risk country. If it's a medium or high risk country, then there's more due diligence that is required, more risk assessment, and then also potentially risk mitigation to reduce the risk. And then the traders, so all that are buying and selling, this information for each transaction would the actor would have to have the information of who did they buy from and sell to. So I think for woody biomass, this is in particular, well, and for domestic production within the EU, this does not increase the burden, administrative burden, very much at all. Assuming that we all remain low-risk countries. And then the definition of degradation in this, to be degradation-free, is borrowing from the Renewable Energy Directive, from the sustainability criteria. However, I must bring one caveat, and that is that it's not exact word for word. There are a few small deviations in the proposal. Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Eric. Very interesting. Yes, I saw this communication about the different products and thought this is interesting, and I guess it's interesting also to see how are things interlaced when it comes to policy, because it's never good to have two policies regulating the same area. So I guess this is a challenge. Perhaps that's something we can discuss later. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, very good. Okay, now I leave the word to Timo Ritonummi from as a set plan IVD8 chair. What are your views on the fast way forward, and how do we overcome the implementation barriers?
Okay, thank you, Patrik, and thank you for this opportunity. So firstly, I don't have any slides, but a few words about the set plan, if everybody is not that familiar. So set plan consists not only EU member state, but also association countries. So there's Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Turkey. And so to make it short, I would say that so the parts of set plan are there's Commission, there's the member states and association countries, but there's very important part is industry and also research. So it's not only like normally, I'm a civil servant at the Ministry of Economic Affairs in Finland. I work with Commission, these directors, but in set plan, it's the cooperation of Commission, member state association countries, industry, and research. And the point is really to accelerate and bring fast forward these technologies, not only bioenergy, but also others. And set plan has now about, I think now there's 14 different implementation working groups. So there's one for industry, one for, it was called smart cities, now it's called positive energy districts, but others, and then there are different implementation working for different renewables. So for instance, there's for photovoltaic, there's for concentrating solar power, one implementation plan, and our implementation working group or plan group is number 8, is bioenergy and renewable fuels for sustainable transportation. So with this, the bioenergy is the bioenergy used for heating and cooling and power, and then also the renewable fuels. But what time when we were doing it, it was I think 2016 and 17 or around that. The hydrogen was, let's say, an idea, but wasn't that the big boom yet. So hydrogen is included in this renewable fuels for sustainable transportation. But now, as we all know, hydrogen is, at least in politicians' table, it's booming everywhere. But nothing more of that. So I'm the chair of this implementation working group 8, which has been there around maybe I think 3 years, and we have had the start was a little slow, but we're now doing very well, very good work, thanks to Patrik and others who have been really helping on here. But if we talk about the, let's say, the way for fast forward and how to come over the obstacles in bioenergy, coming from Finland, so where the bioenergy is the biggest source of energy. So it has passed the oil as the major biggest part, and just like in Sweden and in Finland, which mainly thanks to the big forest industry. So the forest industry, UPM and others, they are doing all the harvesting of the forest, and the side products and side energy of that is a big part. But of course, then we have wood chips and pellets and others, and then we have the biofuels from this byproducts. But so to say that the why bioenergy, and with bioenergy I mean I also include these biofuels in there. And bioenergy is by large is it should and it could go fast forward because the infrastructure is ready, or at least is more ready than for other these booming issues. For instance, the hydrogen, I bring it up again because I worked also with that. The Commission just published this week the Innovation Fund large projects funding. There were 7 projects funded, and 2 of them included hydrogen. The one was in Finland, the other one was in Sweden. So nevertheless, the big boom in Germany and others of this, so maybe the funding is coming from somewhere else, but at least in this innovation funding, the balance between different innovative energy technologies was very good. So there was hydrogen, but there were also biofuels and others. So for the biofuels, because everything, so even the collecting of the forest woods or agriculture and others, it's existing. We can of course make it better. fine-tune it and to make it more sustainable. It has to be sustainable, of course, but the good thing with the bioenergy is that it's around, the technology is there, it just needs to be improved, but it's already in a big use. Whereas in hydrogen, it's more of, let's say, the theoretical, electrolyzers and others. We know they work, of course, but they are still far more expensive. So it's not only one silver bullet that you need. It's not hydrogen, it's not electric vehicles, but you need several bullets to compete this climate action. So in Finland, we have very ambitious goal to be carbon neutral by 2035. So we cannot wait around to wait the hydrogen to come in or the electric vehicles to come in. They are coming, but we also need to increase the share of sustainable biofuels. So everything is needed in this way. But I think more or less this is what I wanted to say. So fast forward, but we can do it.
Thanks a lot, Timo. I completely agree with you. We can do it, and we have a lot of strong actors. So thanks, Timo. Before we start discussing too much, I will let our last panelist in, Küchen from Wirtschaftsverband Fuels and Energy. Welcome to the panel as well, and the floor is yours to give your statement.
Yeah. Thank you. I do it without PowerPoints as well. So thank you for the first statement. I think there are lots of things to discuss later on in our panel. Yeah, I present N2X, the Association for Fuels and Energy. This is an association representing 34 oil and energy companies in Germany, representing 100% of the refining industry. So you could say the fuels industry and 90% of the importing market, so more than 90% of the supply to the German market. And the key task of the association is helping the member companies, so I must say former oil companies, now they are still oil companies, to convert, to transform to climate neutrality. And I agree to what Timo said before. For that, we need all technologies. We need electrification, we need hydrogen, we need biofuels, we need synthetic fuels. This is a bit bigger issue in Germany than in other European countries. I know the discussion, and we need technologies like CCS as well. So everything is needed. And specifically, I think this is different from Scandinavian countries. We will need a lot of energy imports on the long run, even if we are going for a lot of electrification. This will not be sufficient to reach the climate objectives for a heavily industrialized country with a quite big energy demand. And this is I think, an important message, which is one of the things I'm discussing very often with German politicians. We will need a lot of molecules in future, greenhouse gas neutral molecules, and most of them will probably be imported. And we will need them for all sectors. There's no doubt we will need biofuels and synthetic fuels for aviation, for shipping sectors, but we need them for parts of the heating sector as well. We need them for road transport, although we see a lot of electrification ongoing there. But Germany's objective is to be climate neutral in 2045 and to reduce the emissions by 65% compared to 1990 in the next 8 or 9 years till 2030. And this means, especially for the transport sector, that we have to bring down the emissions from 2019, so the year before COVID, I must say, to 2030 by almost 50%. So we have to, in fact, reduce the use of fossil diesel and gasoline by 50% in the next 8 or 9 years. So this describes the objective. That is not, it's really ambitious, and lots of studies have been made in the last weeks, months, and published. And to make it short, even if we manage to bring in the next 8-9 years 14 million electric vehicles to the road in Germany, we still have 30 million cars with combustion engines. And if we look at these objectives, we need a share of more than 20% renewable fuels in the road transport. And in addition, we need renewable fuels for aviation, shipping, etc. So what we studies say that there is a demand of 7 million tons advanced biofuels and e-fuels within the next 7-8 years. To give some figures to the market and to start the debate, we very much welcome the Fit for 55 package. So I think there are lots of elements in there that can help making that work. Although the timing, the schedule is very narrow, and we need a lot of investments in the next 7-8 years to provide the supply. We think, of course, mandates will play a role as proposed in RED 2 or RED 2 revision. But what is at the end, mandates will deliver as much as is asked for, and we know the proposed mandates for Europe will not be sufficient to comply with German climate protection goals. So we would need more in effect. So, but mandates are not the easiest instruments because they have they will be needed, but they provide the minimum amount of fuels or renewable fuels to come to the market. We think a very good part of the package is the proposal of the ETD revision, so the energy tax directive, that could really help making investments in advanced sustainable fuels work, especially of course in the road transport, because we already have relatively high taxes, and if we have that in a way as proposed by the Commission, a tax advantage for advanced fuels, that would allow in combination with mandates probably more and more investments globally. I think this is a key message for our industry. I think the amounts we need, there will be a combination of tools needed, probably some investment support for first plants, but mandates will only deliver a minimum amount. And the third thing is a relatively high CO2 price that can be reached with the proposed ETS for transport and heating in combination with the revision of the taxation. I think only with that combination we can get high CO2 prices that would allow making these investments work. That should be enough for the discussion, I think, as an interim first statement.
Thanks a lot, Christian. Very valid points and interesting. So now we will kick off the discussion, and I will start with provoking you a little, or maybe a statement from my side is that what we likely have now with the electrification growing and potentially we talked about hydrogen, but I think that would be later than 2030. But electrification is growing, but nevertheless, if we maximize the other solutions and also try to use as little as possible in Europe, we still have a lot of combustion engines around, and they will continue to live also after 2030 and after 2035 when there is a target for zero emission tailpipes in the Fit for 55 as it is proposed. And if we do not provide, let's say, the correct or let's say a balanced market for these combustion engine vehicles, the alternative for them will not be electrification. The alternative in that sector will be fossil fuels, and it would be much better to fuel these vehicles with sustainable liquid fuels, because we all know, and also we are, of course, from ETIP Bioenergy side, always holding up the well-to-wheel principle. So having a well-to-tank, tank-to-wheel approach in the legislation is That's the way it is right now. But yeah, it would be better to have a life cycle approach and so on. But how do we provide the right, say, constraints for because it's hard to. We had examples in Sweden, for example, with scenarios that we see a large demand for biofuels up to 2030, but then after that a collapsing market. And if I was an investor from industry, I would find it quite hard to convince my board to put the money on the table, so to say. But how do we provide this? Let's say,
question to me?
Yeah, to anyone that feels.
Well, maybe I start with the first answer. You're making a very good point, Patrik. That really is a problem. We are not, of course, not in favor of a tank-to-wheel approach, which is used in power regulation in the EU. It's the opposite of technological neutrality. And there are proposals on the table how that could be overcome without damaging the advantages of electric vehicles, I think, because they will be part of the solution. I fully agree. And this is by just opening the possibility for car suppliers to make a new car with combustion engine zero emission car if they provide the lifetime amount of fuels for this car for 200,000 kilometers or more in advance, kind of preloading. In additional, take care that additional amounts of advanced biofuels or e-fuels will be brought to the market. This would help, of course, and for investors, I think, because I represent all companies in a way, they could be investors in new technologies, at least take the fuel. I think we have to make clear that road transport could be a starting market with increasing mandates, but at the end 2035 in Finland or 45 in Germany and 50 in 2050 in the EU, the mandates must be 100% renewable, otherwise we are not compatible with the climate objectives. And the second message is, of course, during that time, we have to make sure that markets like shipping and aviation are evolving and taking over the amounts. This is and chemistry as well. So biomass will be used as chemical feedstock as well. This is another market that have to evolve. But all these other markets, we don't see the opportunity to have a high CO2 price in near future because they are under global competition. And that makes it very difficult. You need global agreements for aviation, otherwise we have competitive disadvantages for European aviation industry. This makes it more difficult to implement these fuels, where they definitely needed as well on the long run. So I think this is a work we have to discuss with the Commission and in the member states. There must be some kind of reliability, stable framework for the investors in these renewable fuels.
So,
Timo.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you. I completely agree with Christian. So I think that all the sustainable biofuel that will be produced in this decade and the next, they will be used. So firstly, during this decade and also the second one, it will be all the road transport mainly. Also going to the marine and some pilots in the aviation. But then it's the marine solutions will becoming more, because it will be in emission trading, at least inside the EU. But also, so if you would be in the board of biofuel industry and you have to be convinced that, I would try to convince that all the good things are needed. So electric vehicles are needed, biogas is needed, biofuels are needed, also eventually electrofuels are needed. But whatever is the, let's say, the final goal for this biofuel, whether it goes to the tanks of personal cars, or does it go to the trucks or buses, or does it go to the ferries or longer transportation ships, or how is it kerosene going into the airplanes, it will be a different discussion maybe in 10 or 15 years where's the goal. But anything is needed, because if we talk about from the Glasgow COP26, the time is it's time to act now. We should act now, not to discuss debate that what will be the perfect solution. Let's see and wait whether the hydrogen technology develops, and then choose the cheapest alternative. But we need all the alternatives. We need them fast forward, and we need to make Europe clean.
Thanks, Timo. I agree completely. Maria.
I would like to agree with the fact that fuels, liquid fuels, are going to be needed as long as the thermal combustion engine is around. But a little bit looking into the future, one can see that the fuels can be used also as hydrogen carriers. Meaning that if tomorrow we have fuel cell electric vehicles, you can equally use these advanced biofuels or synthetic renewable fuels at an easy way to carry the hydrogen and finally to run by electricity the vehicles. So it is not like it is only a transitional solution for until the thermal engine is around. I think it is a long-term solution. Depending on the engine that they are going to be used. And for sure, it is a long-term solution for those sectors, as you said, aviation in particular, and shipping that needs just drop-in fuels, in particular long-haul aviation. There's no such a technological advancement even before or after 2050 for electric planes of long haul. Therefore, there is a market for me. There is a market for advanced biofuels and renewable synthetic fuels, short term, medium term, and long term, depending on their use, on how we use them.
Thanks, Maria. Very good. Eric.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to jump in because I think. Yes, I agree that we have a current, with the current fleet of combustion engines, then there's definitely opportunity to increase the amount of biofuels used there. And as Maria says, as long as there's the internal combustion engine, this is an important form of decarbonization. And then, but I agree, there's a challenge because what Maria is hinting at is that there will be a transition of the use from the road sector to aviation and maritime sector. And I think then part of this challenge, I wonder if this is also something that you may have heard of the Renewable and Low Carbon Fuels Value Chain Alliance. This is currently the Commission is asking for input viewpoints on this. There's a consultation, and the idea would be that to further support we already have the refuel maritime refuel EU maritime and the refuel EU aviation and fuel EU maritime, which are aiming to increase the amount of consumption of renewable fuels in these sectors. But then on the other side, it's building up that supply chain and helping increase. Well, also to take on challenges like giving more perspective to investments and investing, mobilizing investments for building up this infrastructure and this production. And I would be curious to hear your views on this. If you've already heard of this, what your thoughts are on how the role this could play.
Yeah. perhaps I can just mention. I've heard of this, and I think it's also good to see. We had on the first day here, we had excellent sessions on both maritime and in aviation, and I think the main focus of ETIP Bioenergy is of course research and innovation. But we have in our working groups we're covering also the production and end use. And I think a lot of the knowledge that has been built in the end use and also in the production chains can be and should be transferred, I think, to this kind of new initiatives. Producing aviation fuels and road fuels or fuels for shipping is sometimes seen as different activities, but in the end they are it's basically there are some differences, of course, but there's a lot to learn here. So of course, as ETIP Bioenergy, we are happy to support those initiatives, even though they might be more linked to market uptake than research and innovation. But I think it's so this is in my mind very interesting initiatives, and I also think we see now this kind of in the last couple of years we see a distinction between different markets where electrification will grow significantly in the road transport, and also quite recently, a couple of weeks ago, we saw long haul trucks carrying something else than potato chips, so to say. That was a joke in the Swedish media, but they are actually carrying heavy goods on over long distance with electric trucks. So that also leads to a question. That was the place where hydrogen comes. So the room for hydrogen in transport is even smaller. So the question is, where do we find the balance here? I think that there's a lot of technology development going on and still a lot of research and innovation. So we are ready to support. Christian.
Yeah,
I will later take questions from the floor. We have a couple. So Christian, just first answer, and then we will pick up some questions.
And some thoughts. I think everybody agrees with the demand for these renewable fuels will shift between the sectors in the future. So I think there will be changes, and I think it makes a lot of sense in that respect. And I think in the renewable low carbon liquid fuels alliance, our oil industry is much engaged in Brussels, so we support all these initiatives. I think it makes a lot of sense to learn a bit from the past, because we had these changes in demand in the past as well. 20 years ago, we sold twice as much gasoline in Europe than diesel, and now it's the other way around. So the technology is there to shift the products. So now what we have to do is integrate the renewable feedstocks, of course, in these kind of processes in a way. Not just, I think that makes a lot of sense to gain that flexibility, and especially for probably aviation, you have these high quality standards, and not only in production, but in the supply chain to the airports. So it makes a lot of sense to use on the long run the infrastructure and the plants that are already there, just to replace step by step the feedstock from oil today to renewable feedstocks. So this is what I say, and then you already have a bit of more flexibility. So if you look at gasoline, you can shift from ethanol or synthetic gasoline with more and more to naphtha. If you don't use combustion engines, you can put it in the chemical industry as a feedstock. So all these changes we will see in the future, and it makes a lot of sense to keep the infrastructure and use it for new feedstocks. This is part, as I described, part of the job of an association to support these ideas.
Thanks. We'll let Maria comment shortly. Then I will take up some questions from the floor. So Maria,
yes,
please.
Only to say that flexibility will be the way to go forward. Flexibility with technologies and flexibility in terms of today it is a fuel and tomorrow it is a building block, or it is the starting feedstock for another fuel. And the example of ethanol. So the infrastructure for advanced ethanol is going to be used later on, both for the alcohol to jet, which is aviation fuels, and the chemical industry. So it is not really, as I said before, it depends on the use. So flexibility is an element that will determine the success of technology to the market.
I agree completely, Maria. I will pick up a comment or a question, and we will jump back to the set plan. So this is a comment from René Vennedal. You're also the co-chair in the set plan here, IVD8. And you're writing that you would support improved fine-tuning and integration between set plans and IVD8 and other IVDs, because as Timo said, there are 14 different areas, and there's also a lot of potential for collaboration with the energy systems, batteries, e-mobility, carbon capture and storage, and so on. We have let's say discussed that, but what are your views on here on the opportunities for integrating the different technology areas to 1 + 1 = 3, so to say? Any comments, Timo, or anyone else?
Okay, thank you. I just saw that René put something in the chat, but anyway, so yes, so actually, like you know, Patrik, that the SB Commission has helped us, the implementation working groups. Everything has been challenging during this COVID time, that we have had not these physical meetings, but like right now, we are not in the same podium sitting next to each other, but we are in all our offices or home offices and discussing, and sometimes losing this connection because sometimes I get your pictures are really swinging. But anyway, so yes, definitely we need this. We don't need silos. Of course, we need to have let's say the structure. So not every 14 different implementation can be together. It will be 1,000 people and even an email, but still. The relative ones that what have these issues. For instance, hydrogen is one issue that is common with these ones, and also there are some others. So yes, we will just have to bring forward this issue. And also in December, so now there's next week there's a set plan conference in Slovenia in Bled. But after that, in the 7th of December, the set plan steering group, and the one big issue there is the form, so the structure, or the not the revision, but let's say the way forward with set plan. So how set plan is working. So how these 14 different implementing working groups are then working together. How to best do it. And then other issues. So yes, definitely.
Right. I think have you been given the possibility to speak, René, with the microphone? I don't know.
I think so. Can you hear me?
Great. We hear you. Yes, René.
Just
some
a short notice. Thank you on what Timo says. What I noticed during the last meeting on the set plan is in the mid of October, that this integration is still not there, while in the Green Deal it is clearly there. There's a lot of opportunities to integrate, and my compliments to the European Commission on that. But I think there's an urgent need to do the same with the set plans, because I do miss it a lot. And there are lots of opportunities to integrate, which makes the position of bioenergy and advanced biofuels, and also bio-based economy, a lot stronger. So I have some suggestions for that. So let's talk about it early next week or so Timo can take that with him.
Okay. Thank you, René.
I will comment that shortly as well. I'm also coordinating this CSA, the Coordination and Support Action, financed by the European Commission, then to support the IVDA, and we are also now in the process to update the set plan. So this is also, let's say, excellent opportunity to look at this, because it was also raised from IVDA side that we would like to see more integration and more cooperation in the relevant areas of the set plan. So that was raised early spring this year. So, but the work is still needed to be done, and no, so that is something we will do at the end of this year and also next year. Okay, let's see if we have. I will take one more question from the floor.
Patrik, do you see that Christian has raised a hand?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, Christian, please go ahead.
Just one comment. I think it's a very hard task for the Commission. It's to bring these different to integrate these different things in regulations. And one example was the tailpipe regulation for cars. It's in a way it's an electrification agenda which is driven there, as we discussed. And on the other hand, now in the RED II revision, at least for the transport sector, there is a kind of integrated approach with the greenhouse gas reduction mandate for fuels and no longer a biofuels mandate there. But on the other hand, that gives a lot of difficulties for investment in fuels, because the amount you need to fulfill these mandates depends very much on the number of electric vehicles, which are not in your hand. So just pointing out that it makes investments in certain technologies more difficult, although it makes a lot of sense to combine it in regulation, these things. So I just say it's not easy. Integrated regulation.
It's having worked with it for so many years and still so much to do. It's not easy. If it was easy, we would have done it.
Yeah,
I agree. We have a question from Greg Arrowsmith from EUREC, and he asked that advanced biofuels get a specific target for 2025 and 2030 in the update Renewable Energy Directive. And he asks if this is a good approach, and should there be a target within the 40% renewable targets as a whole for advanced renewables, is his question. Anyone would like to dwell upon that?
I can try. I can try to reply. To have an advanced biofuels target and synthetic renewable and RFNBO, renewable fuel of non-biological origin target, because they're for both, means that there is recognition that these fuels are going to be necessary for the transport, besides the electrification. So advanced biofuels, hydrogen, other synthetic fuels, electricity, they are all recognized to be important in the transport sector decarbonization. We have also a specific target for renewable energy, which is 49%. Now, if Greg means that we need a specific target for electricity, I think this is well recognized that there will be a priority and a lot of electrification in all the energy system. I don't think it will add anything more into promoting these technologies regarding electrification. The important sectors that were left behind in decarbonizing the sectors were the heating and cooling and the transport. And I think these two targets help towards this direction.
Thank you, Maria. Anyone else wanting to comment on that?
Well, I would just maybe add that there's, I mean, in several areas there are these targets. I mean, it's not only the Renewable Energy Directive, it's also with sort of basically almost mandates in for the aviation sector and and particularly for the maritime sector. So there's in these key sectors, there are these targets. So I would only say on heating and cooling, this is more a bioenergy, I mean a solid biomass sector traditionally, and therefore I don't see the need for a target related to liquid fuels there.
Yeah, I agree. For liquid fuels, these sub-targets for RFNBOs and advanced biofuels really help, because this is a clearer signal than just having as I mentioned before, greenhouse gas mandate, where you have different fulfillment options, and some of them are not in your hands, and this makes it more difficult to use that as investment signal. So I think, yes, these sub-mandates are needed, as you have in a couple of these proposals.
Great. Please feel free to ask more questions. If there are some more in the chat, but there are more statements. I don't see any clear questions, so please take the chance. I would like to ask you a question, and it's one of my favorite things is this systems perspective. What are your views on how to improve the? It was mentioned in a conference I listened to that we need the system perspective 2.0. So a better system perspective and also a wider. How do we achieve that? And often it's you pick a winner. I think hydrogen has been picked as a winner several times in history, and what is happening now is that hydrogen is put into the system. That's the way it is handled in the set plan. It needs to be put in a system perspective, and their hydrogen will be in many places. But so it's not a solution on its own. But what are your views? How do we get to the next step in system perspective thinking?
So if I may, Patrik, so it's an easy question, so it's not easy to say that whether we have it system 2.1 or 3.1 or 3.0 or whatever. But yes, it's easy to say that we need this system approach, and definitely. And this hydrogen is a very good example, because even if I look at the, let's say, again, back to this innovation fund and this first large scale projects. So the one project in Finland is for Neste oil company, and they are producing gray hydrogen from natural gas, as any other refineries in Europe, to produce both fossil fuels and also the renewable fuels. So for renewable fuels they use gray hydrogen, and now they will turn into the clean hydrogen, partly green but partly blue hydrogen. And after this project they will produce clean hydrogen, and then they will clean the fossil fuels. Part of that will be clean, and also the biofuels will be clean. The biofuels should be crossed. And the other project is this hybrid steel making. So instead of using coke, they use hydrogen. So this is a system, because this one, both of these, the electrolyzer in Porvoo in southern Finland, or up in northern Sweden in Luleå, they need a lot of electricity, and it's not easy to install 500 megawatt electrolyzer in northern Sweden even. So you need the grid there and balance these things. So you need these approaches. And in Finland, for instance, we are just preparing our national climate and energy strategy to meet the 2030 and this national 2035 goal. And we are including the hydrogen in there, both in transportation, in industry, and others. But we are not making a big fuss of the hydrogen.
Thanks, Timo. Yeah, this morning I was in a meeting with Vattenfall where they presented hybrid, so it's a very, very interesting example. Okay, Christian.
Yeah, I fully agree with Timo said. The same in Germany. Refineries are about the first to replace the gray hydrogen by green hydrogen. This is part of the discussion. But I like the question on a system approach, and I think we have to look at it at an even broader angle. In fact, it's not only, we shouldn't only be the objective to replace all the fossil fuels, coal, gas, oil, by renewable and/or efficiency and electrification. At the end, the objective is, of course, that all the oil, gas, and coal in the world stays in the ground. And this is a question, I think, which is not often discussed. And this is why, at least partly in Germany, these global projects on PTL, etc., play a quite important role. Because if you do not give these countries who now export oil, gas, and alternative, they will not leave it in the ground. And then we can do whatever we want in Europe, replacing all our fossil energy that we are using. If we do not manage to give to develop alternatives, and this means in a way a global energy trade based on green energy, and we need to integrate that in a way. And I think this is normally not the issue which is discussed on the system approach, but I just wanted to bring that in. And this is why I think liquid energy can play an important role, because it's globally tradable, and that it makes maybe a lot of sense to use to give these countries an opportunity to develop new business models. And it's for climate protection, it's even crucial, I think.
Thanks, Christian. Maria.
Yes, the Commission is thinking from a system perspective, because we announced the energy system integration strategy. This is centered in electrification, basically, but there's still room for gases and other type of fuels. I would say this is the overall system integration, but a systemic approach should be also made locally. Local needs may be different, local resources may be different, and then there should be kind of thinking and balancing on how the resources would fit from a systemic approach, the energy system integration locally. I would suggest to think in terms of complete value chain when we're talking about energy products, energy and energy products, from the beginning, the raw material, up to the end use. Also, a systemic approach means that we need to have certification and standardization to enable trading of these products locally, nationally, and internationally. I would also suggest to integrate much with renewable hydrogen and renewable energy in the energy sector, in industrial sector, in building sector, everywhere where it is possible. This integration will be favorable, and I think thinking now from the systemic approach will systemic view, it will make the approach overall optimal.
Thanks, Maria. Very, very clear. Eric.
Yes, thank you. I think discussing the system integration is a good idea, because well, one thing that I was thinking about during the discussion is that the costs play a big role, and if there are certain uses of different products that may not be so wise. For example, the use of synthetic fuels. These are going to be the most expensive type of fuel. So it would make sense to use this in very high value or high, the most difficult areas to find other solutions. For example, with aviation. Of course, this could also be mixed with biofuels. But in the energy system integration, it's a similar thing, is that looking at where can we electrify first, and then where we can't use these other things like hydrogen and renewable fuels. But one issue is that I think this Christian has already brought it up, is that everybody is interested in hydrogen, but it's a major challenge to produce this green hydrogen or renewable hydrogen. So it makes sense to look at where can we get larger amounts, for example, of synthetic fuels based on hydrogen, in areas that are very efficiently producing or able to harness a lot of renewable energy, solar energy, for example. This could reduce the costs. Of course, it means importing, but in some cases, it would also make it easier then to ensure that the electrification and also the hydrogen that is being produced within the EU is renewable. And then there are, for example, I would say in the transport, if we're looking at shipping, it would be much easier to use biofuels because you can it doesn't require the high grade or the fuels like in aviation. So I think there's much more potential to. This is also part of the transition component, shifting and putting other fuels that are being used maybe for road transport requires less quality refinement for the maritime use. So it's one way to also save costs. And then another element is, I think Maria mentioned the local aspect, so that local solutions are also part of the energy system. And here, airports and ports are also areas where production can be very relevant, especially airports have often a lot of land around them. And so there's an element of, two elements. One is the production of biomass can be done on these lands that can't really be used for anything else anyway, because for security reasons, the plants can't grow too high and interfere with traffic. And secondly, airports are also an area where there's a lot of waste. So kind of integrating this in a mix between biomass production and waste use is really an element of the circularity and also energy system integration. And in fact, Maria, you might know more about this. I know we had some Horizon 2020 projects under the Green Deal call, focusing on green airports and green ports that may have included some of this. I don't know if there's anything else now that I'm no longer working on Horizon issues. I think we may have more of this in the pipeline in the future, but I think this might be a very one aspect of the solution.
Thanks a lot, everyone. It sounds really, yeah, that the system perspective is at heart, and of course that's a way to do it with integrating systems. And yeah, so any more questions from the floor? I saw a question on the color of hydrogen from biomass. So I would say the color would not be blue or gray; it would be green. Hydrogen. So the question was for you, Timo. So sorry for answering the question addressed to you, but
yeah, but okay, yeah, we don't have to go into details, but I agree that hydrogen, clean hydrogen, is not should not be only produced with wind power plus electrolyzer. There are other ways too, and let the cheapest or cleanest way win.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Yes, and we have some statements here on that diversity of renewable energy is a key point, and of course that's a big benefit, but also the challenge that there is so many different feedstocks. I guess wind energy has then there's only wind, and then there's different places to place your windmill, so it's a bit easier than biomass that can come in so many forms. Okay. So any last statements from anyone or so on? But what do you think the Fit for package? How will it contribute to the role for bioenergy? What are your views on that?
As I mentioned before, I think very good parts on it, mandates and different things, and I think taxation isn't discussed enough. It will be difficult to get a common position between 27 member states, of course, but for really doing more than minimum, which is always mandates, is always a minimum, it could really help. develop the markets and make the investments work. So I'm much in favor to develop all these instruments. And ETS, so emission trading for transport and heating, is another issue, but I guess for social reasons, it will be very hard to get high CO2 prices by that instrument. So converting the energy tax is much more powerful in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may continue that, I think Finland and Sweden has shown this, that with national goals for different renewables or solar growth potential, we can create a market. So of course, this is a good backbone, the Fit for 55 and Red Directive there. But again, I think Finland and Sweden may continue to have, let's say, more ambitious national goals to push the markets.
Yeah, I think definitely in Sweden we have the blending or the reduction obligation. So and that drives a lot of volumes in the market, but it's only until 2030 so far. So we'll see what's happened.
Okay, we have to start to look a little further.
The Fit for 55, as you know, it is about pricing, about taxes, and about regulations with targets. So we have also the ETD, the Energy Taxation Directive, which has been revised. And in this revision, there is the possibility to exempt from taxation the renewable electricity, but also the renewable fuels, advanced biofuels, advanced bioliquids, biogases, and biomass fuels that are produced according to Annex 9 of RED II feedstocks, meaning that at least there is the market signal, the pricing signal that these are favorable products, energy products, when of course they are sustainable. So in the Fit for 55, there are positive elements that directly will influence further the development of renewable fuels and bioenergy, but also there are some elements that indirectly will create either a positive or a kind of difficulty for the deployment, but it is necessary to have the sustainability criteria clear, so we are sure that the solutions that are put in the market are the ones that will be beneficial for the environment.
I agree completely. Thanks a lot, everyone. I will now, we will end the panel. So thanks to everyone for your excellent contributions. It was really inspiring also to hear, and I think also looking forward to now to really get into the details of all of the different policy and so on, and also we will be following what will be in the end will be decided, and also continue to drive or to see how we can also push technologies through on the TRL scale. So excellent contribution, and also looking forward to continue discussing with you. I will not keep you for so long, but so thanks a lot, and a big applause to you. I will now, we have come to the closing remarks, so I will not keep you for too long, but I will just give a short run through on what we learned during these days. I think it was really inspiring. As I said, we heard from Maria about the research and innovation policy on renewable fuels and bioenergy. So significant opportunities in the new Horizon Europe and in other ways to continue to develop this sector, and also make sure that this the bioenergy sector, which is contributing, bioenergy is contributing to over half of the renewable energy in Europe, and that will continue, and we have a lot of opportunities to develop. And then we had great sessions on both the aviation and shipping. It was really inspiring to hear about the different possibilities for these sectors. One thing I remember is Maersk going really for a very ambitious plan to get rid of CO2 completely in their shipping work. It's really inspiring. We also had very good contributions from DG Move, both for shipping and aviation, giving clear views on the way forward. We heard from KM, so the aviation, and Ricardo gave a really interesting presentation on pathways for reducing emissions in the maritime sector. Yesterday we had a presentation on something that is the heart of ETIP Bioenergy, and that is the conversion technologies. We do a lot of work in ETIP Bioenergy to develop the value chains to bring these technologies further up in the TRL scale, and also see how new technologies are coming. There is a lot of technologies that has, of course, had the problems reaching the market due to the policy uncertainty and so on. But we hope that will be less uncertainty in the future. But still a lot of interesting technology aspects. So if you listened yesterday, you had a lot of details about that. So very interesting. And today we also heard about the thing that we're starting with, and that is the sustainable biomass feedstock. So a lot of interesting presentations about how to provide the sector with the feedstock that is needed to then produce the bioenergy that we need to get to lower carbon emissions and eventually to a climate neutral society. And then we had this excellent panel discussion, fast way forward. So we as ETIP Bioenergy will continue to find ways to push the fast forward button and really to accelerate. And this is done through ETIP Bioenergy in the working groups. We are also very active in the set plan, IVD 8, through collaborating, and also we are also a number of partners in ETIP Bioenergy is also involved in the Set for Bio coordination and support action. So I hope this was valuable for everyone, and we will also we have recorded this, as was mentioned in the start, and we will share the presentations and also the recordings on the ETIP Bioenergy webpage. So with that, I would like to thank everyone. And also I will hand over, if Maria, if you want to say some last words from the European Commission, you also feel free to do that if you wish. Yeah, it was really inspiring. It was, sorry we couldn't meet in person, but hopefully we can do that soon once the situation gets better. Maria.
Patrik, I also would like to thank ETIP Bioenergy for this very interesting, very well organized, very fruitful event. The message from the European Commission side, and in particular the RTD, the Research and Innovation, is that we continue to support this area with promoting technologies, novel technologies, improving current technologies, thinking of diversifying the risks and fulfilling the future needs in sectors that have definitely needs for these technologies, but also as solutions that can emerge later on for all other possible sectors. I think systemic approach is important in contributing to the carbon neutral energy system transition. And I think now more than ever, the policy scene and environment is more clearer, and investments can go ahead to fulfill the short-term, medium-term and long-term needs with clear investment funds that can be found all over from the sources that the EU provides, so much for the research and innovation financing, also the risk financing, and then the commercial investment financing. So with this, I hope that all this is going very well. And thank you very much for your attention to my speech.
Thank you, Maria. And I will also invite Eric, if you wish, you can give a last statements. If you're still there, Eric.
Yes, I was sorry. I don't know if my
Yes.
video is not working, but anyway, yeah, thank you very much. It's I of course wasn't able to attend the whole session. I was involved in some other meetings as well. So no, it's been very interesting, and I would say definitely from the DG ENER side, there will still be yes, there's a lot of happening policy-wise, and there will be some more policies approaching soon. Maybe not completely related, but perhaps more closer to biomethane. This could also be interesting for ETIP Bioenergy, but
Indeed.
I can definitely give you updates on this as we progress. Yes, and well, of course, now it's time for we will be negotiating all of these policies in the future, and we'll see where they take us. And but I'm very optimistic that this Fit for 55 package and European Green Deal policies will bring a lot of movement, also for biofuels and bioenergy.
Great. Thanks a lot, Eric. And finally, I would like to thank also the organizers of the ETIP Bioenergy Secretariat with the FNR in the lead, but also ETA and others. So big hands to you and for organizing this successful event. So thanks to all of the team that is in the background supporting and the fixing everything. So great to have you as always. And stay safe, everyone, and see you in the bioenergy world, hopefully also in physical meetings in the future. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.